from the New York Post, MS-13 Russian mobsters use migrants in elaborate injury scam, even getting spinal surgery to pull it off. And that seems like a lot of work. If you could do all this, you could probably just get a job, like use your powers for good. But obviously they can't. And I guess why not put these criminal illegals to work? But my name's Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that fun stuff. I'm absolutely begging you.
I'm begging you, please. Come on, please.
It would help me a lot, and it would cost you nothing to engage with the content. But of course, if you wanted to help me even more and spend some money, you would buy my book, New York City 2020, Gotham Unglued, on Amazon.com. That link will be in the description, but they say, it's the melting pot of all scams. Russian gangsters, MS-13 members, and a cadre of corrupt surgeons, lawyers, and lenders are pulling off the latest big con in the city. Bogus personal injury lawsuits where immigrants, now, again, once again, we're not going to differentiate whether these are immigrants who may have showed up a decade, 2, 3 decades ago, took the test, spent the money, did the paperwork, waited patiently, or criminal illegals, but I digress, go under the knife to help their twisted ruse. Migrants and other desperate New Yorkers are pressured into getting unneeded spinal fusion surgery and other operations to boost the value of their fake accident claims, according to court records, insurance investigators, and law enforcement sources. Doctors cash in on the sick swindle by performing back and neck fusions, allowing fraudsters to swipe billions through bogus insurance filings, according to filings and sources. And yeah, I don't understand how this scam works really, but I guess it kind of makes sense. It's basically just insurance fraud, but they're going to absolutely monumental lengths of actually getting surgery to pull this off. And of course, I mean, if you slept in the Darien Gap for 2 months and showed up and you can't get a job and you're squatting in a hotel, you know, throwing away the food they gave you and making the food of your homeland on a hot plate, why wouldn't you go get some surgery and you'll get a kickback from a MS-13 gangster who's probably illegal also, or a Russian mobster or corrupt doctor? I mean, why not, right? The racket typically involves a healthy person taking a seemingly minor tumble on the street or at a construction site, then claiming a devastating injury that requires multiple surgeries. A crooked surgeon fuses healthy vertebrae with screws and plates, leading to a lawsuit against a business or landlord or both. Settlements start at $1 million each, but can go much higher. Bro, they're literally going through with complete surgeries on healthy people. I mean, think about the doctors, right? Like, we expect criminality from Russian mobsters, MS-13 gangsters, and criminal illegals, but the doctors, who are supposed to be the trustworthy bunch, but as we know by now, there are no adults left in the room. 1.5 is now on the cheap side, said an insurance industry lawyer who asked for anonymity. I don't know what that means. 1.5? Okay, 1.5 million is now on the cheap side. These scams rely on law firms that take hundreds of cases along with high-profile doctors, sketchy lending firms that hard sell migrants, right? Again, migrants, immigrants, or criminal illegals into borrowing to cover the costs, and an army of runners who recruit victims and orchestrate their falls, according to legal papers and sources familiar with the mix of schemes. And this also is kind of reminiscent of the criminal illegals who were also who were doing fake robberies, right? And then, of course, in one story, I think somebody tried to stop the robbery and actually killed the guy. That's a completely different story. But I mean, the levels of these scams is just through the roof, right? I mean, you could just show up as a criminal illegal and start gaming the system, the asylum system, and the anchor baby birthright citizenship. You can game all that. But this is an entirely different level. There's all these things that I'm not even privy to, and it's like, can't you guys just be normal? The setup is fed by a seemingly endless supply of low-income dupes willing to risk their health for a quick score. They're regularly recruiting migrants and homeless people, in some cases, are proactively arranging for them to come to New York, a private investigator told the Post. So-called shot callers pocket most of the windfall settlements, while those who pose as injured receive as little as $1,000 each. Wait, so they went under the knife and they're only going to get $1,000 kickback? Okay, I guess if you're desperate. According to testimony in one case, their share gets shriveled by sky-high interest on loans they're told they need for medical and legal expenses. Others can collect up to 6 figures. Russian hoodlums are suspected of running lending firms that fund trip and fall lawsuits and surgeries, often at hugely inflated rates to goose settlement figures, sources told the Post. They're well versed in this kind of thing, said a recently retired NYPD supervisor. MS-13 leaders provide a pipeline of Hispanic migrants, some who are brought to New York specifically to fake injuries, sources said. There's just a never-ending sector of scams. But of course there's an industry. Of course there's Russian mobsters and MS-13 gangsters who are making money off of the illegals who already made money for the cartels. MS-13 leaders provide a pipeline of Hispanic migrants, some who are brought to New York specifically to fake injuries. They said the gang ropes in unsuspecting border crossers with offers to drive them to the city, pay for meals, and provide spending cash before pressuring them into phony accidents. So they're highlighting these scams that they might be into, but not once in this article so far are they addressing them as the criminal illegals that they are. Oh, they're border crossers, right? So these crimes are there's crimes on top of crimes on top of crimes. It's never going to end because there's obviously nobody in charge, right? You're going to run that up the ladder? You think Kickback Kathy Hochul is going to put a stop to it? Absolutely not. A private investigator said an MS-13 informant at a construction company revealed plans for a worker to fall off a ladder. And it happened just as the tipster said it would, said the sleuth, who declined to say where or when the fraud occurred to protect the identity of his source. Setting up fake falls is so successful for MS-13, and you kind of have to assume that they're probably in on both of these things, right? Like, yeah, we can get some money by smuggling these people into America, but we can also get some money by committing fraud once the people are there. And if they don't, well, they will. He said, rival gangs are now trying it, but MS-13 leaders are not experienced in white-collar crime and don't know how to pull off phony injury fraud, according to gang expert Lou Savelli, who founded the NYPD gang unit and now consults for police and other law enforcement agencies. That's where the Russians come in, he said. They have the lawyers. NYPD investigators found one integrated Russian-led operation with doctors, lawyers, lenders, and physical therapists all in the same office building, said a former police supervisor who declined to give further details. It was one-stop shopping. Everyone was in the same place, he said, adding that authorities were unable to build a case against the group. The Russian MS-13 partnership, oh man, is a perfect marriage for them, said a second NYPD source. Insurance insiders claim losses have tripled since the pandemic, with payouts so massive they're driving up the cost for all New Yorkers. And I mean, what did you think was going to happen after it all collapsed? After you foisted Rona on everybody, said you got to wear a mask, and now of course they're saying it's illegal. Or Kickback Kathy is talking about, no, we're going to ban masks in the subway. But The criminal politicians breed criminal residents. They're certainly not citizens. I mean, they're just barely residents. But right, the criminal politicians bring in criminal third worlders and they commit further crimes with Americans who are already committing crimes probably for decades. One insurer, Tradesman Program Managers Insurance Firm of Poughkeepsie, a carrier covering contractors and construction companies in the city, says it forked over $142 million in 2022. 3 times the $36 million it paid out in 2018. It claims it has been hit with 650 allegedly fraudulent suits over the last 4 years. And this is also maybe apples to oranges, but the fraudsters at the NYMTA, right, the LIRR and the subway system, collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars from their couch in a fraudulent overtime scam. So they're all over the place. I mean, I do have a bone to pick with the migrants, and nobody's going to clean this up, but I guess this is better than them robbing people. You know, you want to look for the silver lining or do the glass half full thing. We're talking billions collectively across the city, said an insurance executive who asked not to be identified. Yeah, nobody wants to be identified. Nobody wants to talk about this because the MS-13 and the Russian gangsters are going to come after you. And they're probably going to employ the illegals to break your knees. Tradesman and its underwriter sued 8 doctors and 2 law firms, Groyer Reb Associates and Foreman and Bergman, along with 36 lawyers, healthcare providers, and companies in Brooklyn federal court in March, citing RICO conspiracy laws used to prosecute mafia dons in its civil action. They trained the migrants how to act some of these staged accidents, tradesman lawyer Kirk Willis told ABC7. And when the people are allegedly hurt, they go to the lawyer first, not the doctor. Then the lawyer starts a course that sets up these fraudulent lawsuits. New York, I mean, this is all, obviously, I mean, if you get away with it, more profitable than trying to get a real job. But what's left? I mean, there's no retailers. I don't know if any businesses are investing in New York because that's a loser state, as is California. So says Mr. Wonderful.
New York was already a loser state, like California's a loser state.
New York's scaffold law says builders are considered fully at fault for any accident involving a fallen worker, and that empowers criminals, said Rigo Foss, general counsel for Andromeda Advantage Incorporated of Long Island City, a construction consultant. We have 59 cases that we've identified as fraudulent. And this is, again, not a direct correlation, but think about the real estate industry in New York, where no matter what happens, the laws, the rules always favor the tenant, right? So it does, I mean, well, not anymore. Now you can just get in, just say, oh, I'm seeking asylum, and they'll put you up in a place. But, several years ago, you had to jump through all these hoops. I mean, I guess if you're a real native-born American, you still have to jump through these hoops to get into an apartment and make an astronomical amount of money to live in a shoebox with a view of a barbed wire fence. But the point here is, it's always going to favor the tenant, right? So somebody in New York cannot pay rent for months, and it's going to take the landlord at least a year to get rid of him. So these rules that they create, and we saw the squatters a couple months ago, that was all the rage, right? These rules they create are obviously going to benefit. I mean, I guess the regime pretends that they are actually benefiting the middle class worker and all that stuff, but it's just falling in the laps of criminals all over the place. We have 59 cases that we've identified as fraudulent, said Foss, who projects those claims will cost as much as $100 million to settle or reach a verdict. And that's if it all stops now. It's a huge issue. Everyone's getting hit. The scams are ballooning costs for insurance, housing, construction, food, utilities, and basic living expenses, sources say. New York already has the 3rd highest average car insurance rate in the country, with minimum liability costing $1,472 per year. The 5th highest rates for individual health insurance at $736 per month, and the 2nd highest workers' compensation costs. Every contractor is affected because their rates go up every year and they pass along the costs. Rumors of a potential federal probe have circulated among lawsuit litigants for weeks, one confidential source told the Post. So look, I don't know if this is, look, it all just goes on. I'm sure there's more cases. Look at this, just more cases of, oh my word. Oh. Leslie Ortiz had fusion surgeries on her neck and back, like the one pictured, leaving her in unbearable pain. So that's not an x-ray from one of these criminals, but a similar one. And without reading because look, it's just going to go on and on and on. We get it. It's a scam, and I wish that these people could use maybe some of their brains, some of their, street smarts to do good, but obviously that is not the case. And this person has been, so not only could you end up in jail, but you could also end up actually injured by pretending to be injured in order to get a settlement, to commit fraud and get a settlement. I mean, with all of these crooked doctors, crooked lawyers, but what did you expect? There's nobody in charge. Who are you going to file suit? So you're going to file suit against the corrupt doctors and the corrupt lawyers? You're going to file suit against the MS-13 gang members or the illegals? How is this actually going to end? Hopefully with some people going to jail. But even in New York, they don't, San Francisco told us, they don't even believe in crime.
You guys worried about consequences like from the police out here?
What? San Francisco doesn't believe in crime. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Shout out the DA though. Oh, shout out London Breed too.
Which is basically true in New York. And there's another story from, I don't know, a couple months ago, maybe a year or two ago, where some lady tried to sue Geico because she got an STD in her car because she was being a floozy. But that's a completely different story. And I guess on the plus side, it is good to see some classic fraud schemes, because insurance companies are slippery, to put it nicely. But that's a different story. And I guess in a weird way, it's kind of, nostalgic to see some classic insurance fraud scams. And I guess these people are mutilating their body in a completely different way than just cutting their junk off and sending it to China.
I'm not gonna get my dick cut off and sold to China, spend the rest of my life on a treadmill like this guy.
What?